Hi everyone, you're on the Cinebuzz channel. Today we are going to analyze as many as 20 new series, or almost 20, which managed to come out in December and January. Genres will be different, and ratings high, unobtrusively. Don't forget to like. Well, and we begin. 20th place, Mansi Daniels. A bright CNN anchor who is about to have his own show. His job is not bad. But with the family is much more difficult. His wife wants a divorce, and the children with him almost no contact. To relax from the hustle and bustle of the city and other personal problems, Mance decides to leave for a couple of weeks in a country house by the lake, where almost no one lives. Despite this, the man gets to know Mark from a nearby cabin on his first day. When the lights go out in the neighborhood, Mance goes to his neighbor's house and discovers a dismembered corpse and a couple of unknown masked men. The journalist manages to kill one of them. The next day, after reaching the police station and explaining the whole situation, all suspicions fall on the protagonist, as the guards of order refuse to believe the African American. Mark's body disappeared from the scene, and in addition, it turns out that the murdered neighbor was a white supremacist, known under the nickname Brother 14. From that moment on, Mance begins to be systematically discredited in the eyes of the public. Translated with Deeple.com, free version. 19th place, Star Wars, Backup Team. An ordinary schoolboy whim, fascinated by Jedi stories, one day accidentally finds an object hidden from prying eyes in the woods. Mistaking it for the entrance to the Jedi Temple, the boy tries to open it with his friend Neil. They are joined by two equally brave and inquisitive girls. The mysterious object turns out to be a hatch to a wrecked spaceship that has inexplicably ended up on this planet. Once inside, the children, of course, pressed the buttons on the remote control, and the ship suddenly made a jump into outer space. Young heroes do not know in what part of the galaxy they found themselves, and how to get back. To find their way home, they stop at a busy spaceport. There the boys meet Jodo. Vin takes him for a Jedi, but is it really so, and should they trust this mysterious character? The friends have nothing to do but hope that he will help them to return home to their home planet, which for some reason nobody knows about. I'm sure that while watching it, adult fans of the Star Universe will feel like they're in a nursery. The plot is as simple as possible, as is the execution. Naturally, Jude Law brightens up this sandbox with his acting stardom, but it doesn't cancel the kindergarten approach. No secret meanings, no complex characters. As a result, just good visuals and a good story. 18th place, No Man's Land. Zoor, Our Days. Ish is the name of a young geologist who is bitten by a rattlesnake on another mountain outing. It would seem that fortune is not on his side. There is no antidote, the phone is lost, and with it the last chance to call someone for help. Fortunately, the man manages to get to the cabin, where he spends the next few weeks in delirium. After coming to his senses, Ish returns home where he learns shocking news. During his absence, the country has been struck by a deadly plague, and the human race has practically disappeared. After a while, having recovered from his grief, he decides to go on a trip across the country in the hope of finding survivors. Now we get to watch the main character cling to life, picking up books from the library to learn how to build a new world. The longer I watched, the more and more I was amazed at Ish's patience and his willingness to learn new things. The characters are gradually revealed, and the intrigue appears only from the second episode. All in all, whether to watch or not is up to you. 17th place, The Bastard Chronicles. This is a continuation of the dilogy, in which the main role was played by Mark Duplass. His hero, Joseph, is better known by the nickname Peach Poo. All the series are separate stories of a maniac who lures his victims under the pretext of filming. In each series he has a new name, image, and location. The man lures unsuspecting people to him, manipulates them, and at the most unexpected moment brutally massacres them. Since the timing of the episodes does not exceed 30 minutes, the development of secondary characters is completely absent. Peach Poo's victims are practically indistinguishable from each other, white-skinned middle-aged men who simply had the misfortune to encounter the maniac. The killer is comical, hysterical, and has a certain amount of grim charm, like the owner of a gas station in a slasher movie. But the main quality of the maniac is still that he's on the CVO of the forces alive. Even knowing that, watching another victim of the madman fall down a rabbit hole full of Joseph's traps is quite entertaining. The series may have lacked the action and constant sense of dread we often expect from horror movies, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a bold experiment that deserves attention.
16th place. Brilliant Minds. Oliver Wolf is a brilliant neurologist with prosopagnosia, a rare condition that prevents him from distinguishing people's faces. Together with his interns, the man tries to help people suffering from unusual psychological illnesses, using not the most traditional methods to do so. And it is Wolf's diagnosis that allows him to look at problems from an unusual angle. The series is based on the biography of the famous American neuropsychologist and writer Oliver Sacks. Throughout his life, he wrote many books and memoirs based on cases from medical practice. On the one hand, it seems that Brilliant Minds, just another drama series about doctors, but the approach of the creators strikingly distinguishes it from, for example, the same Grey's Anatomy. First of all, the cinematic style is very different from what we are used to seeing in medical dramas. The series is shot in dark colors, which are more common in psychological thrillers or detectives, and this attracts attention. Secondly, the fact that Oliver Wolf has a real-life prototype is definitely a feature of the series. Although in terms of plot, it resembles something between Dr. House and The Good Doctor. 15th place, Behind the Beautiful Facade. A black dramedy about Lydia and Paul Morgan, who are selling their huge villa in a wealthy suburb of Los Angeles. The buyers are three unusual couples who show interest. They don't yet know what happened in the house 3 years ago. 3 years is not a random period. It is after this time sellers cease to be obliged to tell about all the terrible secrets and dark corners of the house. But for buyers, there are no barriers when at stake an extra $200,000. Gradually, the secrets of the Morgans, of course, begin to surface, and the market value of the villa respectively fall. What is most interesting, during the acquaintance with all the applicants for housing the situation, is much more complicated because they also have something to hide. In general, the Morgan family will have to do everything possible to sell the house as soon as possible and keep their main secret. And what exactly? Find out in the series. 14th place, The Inner Kitchen of Chinatown. An adaptation of Charles Yu's popular novel was released on Hulu, with the writer serving as showrunner for the project and Taika Waititi directing the pilot and executive producing. According to the plot, an Asian American, a waiter at a Chinese restaurant, Willis Wu, dreams of a bright and busy life, to witness a grandiose crime and to be in the center of attention. However, the fate of the hero, to take out the garbage, wash toilets, and remain a shadow of the long-missing brother of the kung fu master. Suddenly, Willis's dream begins to come true. Someone kidnaps a nail salon worker near the restaurant, and now instead of a secondary character, the man becomes an unofficial partner of the detective. He will have to get to the truth by any means, because the case is connected not only with the kidnapping of an innocent girl and the war of local groups, but also with the past of his brother. An interesting approach to storytelling. Rather than breaking the fourth wall or creating a story within a story, this series takes a character bonding approach, often sidelining the characters and showing how they can break free of their stereotypical and cliched limitations and become fully realized protagonists in their own stories.
13th place, The Light Shop. In a quiet urban neighborhood, at the end of one dark alley, there is a lamp store that is open until dawn. All sorts of people walk in, but some of them look suspicious if you look closely. Accordingly, it's best to stay away from them. In fact, that's all we are told about in the first episodes. A schoolgirl often goes to the store to buy a light bulb at her mom's request. But one day in the alley she encounters a strange stranger. The owner of the store, having learned about it, explains that when meeting such people, you should pretend as if you do not notice them. But the child's curiosity takes over. Several stories are told in parallel, which eventually weave together. A lonely woman with a suitcase, a girl moving into a house on a dark alley, a perpetually freezing man, and many, many others. The main problem with these characters is that they seem flat, cardboard, and even nameless. Those who like this kind of understated urban mysticism might enjoy it. Without spoilers, I will say that the ending will answer all questions. 12th place, Swedish robbery. Strange as it may seem, banks are robbed in Sweden too, without a single shot or casualty. The robbers manage to escape with a lot of money, and the police only have to watch it. The series, based on real events, over the course of 8 episodes describes the clearly planned crime of 2 childhood friends. Despite the rather detailed coverage of the preparation of the bank raid, which takes up almost 5 episodes, the series leans more towards drama. It is filmed mostly in gloomy dark colors. This once again convinces us that not from a simple life and quit with a criminal past men decide to another robbery. Is it worth watching Robbery in Swedish? I think that the series will appeal more to fans of dramas. It is not an action movie, because despite the criminal theme, it does not have a lot of shootings, fights and chases. At the same time, I can't call what I saw a thriller, because due to the prolonged length, it lacked a proper sense of tension. 11th place, Agencies. Based on the French series The Bureau, 2015 to 2020, tells the story of a CIA agent codenamed The Martian who returns to London after a 6-year undercover assignment in Ethiopia. His return is accompanied not only by professional difficulties, but also by personal drama. The hero is forced to break off relations with a married woman, with whom he was connected by a passionate affair. After arrival, the agent faces a completely different world, bureaucracy, office intrigues and political games inside the station. His new assignment is to prepare the young recruit Danila for a dangerous mission in Iran. However, his professional life is complicated by the unexpected appearance of his beloved. This meeting puts the hero before a moral choice, to continue his career in intelligence or risk everything for the sake of personal happiness. The plot is saturated with secondary lines, such as the hunt for a mysterious coyote, which threatens to reveal CIA secrets, and the power struggle between the station chief and his deputy. 10th place, Blackbirds. A relatively new detective series from Netflix, where the main character is Helen, the wife of the Minister of Defense, who helps him maintain the image of a model family man. They have 2 children, a big house, in general, a strong family for as long as 10 years. Except that Helen is not her real name. In fact, the woman is a secret agent of a spy organization called Black Doves, which hunts for secret information from different politicians and sells it to those who will pay more. It's hard to live a made-up life, so Helen gets a lover named Jason. He is also a civil servant, but with him the woman is not for profit, but rather for the soul. The plot begins when the lover is killed, after which Helen herself is in the crosshairs. To protect her agent, the head of the Black Doves sends her old friend Sam to help. Investigating Jason's death, they learn about a large-scale conspiracy linking the criminal world of London and the coming geopolitical crisis. Starting with the second series, the plot of the present is replaced by flashbacks to when Helen first joined the spy organization. The same narrative progression will continue in the future. Flashbacks are few, they do not interfere with the story, but on the contrary complement it. As for Sam, at first his whole storyline is one continuous subpoena, which doesn't sound very cool, but if you don't stop watching, he will be revealed as a real killer from a completely different side. 9th place, The Man Inside. A year ago, engineering professor Charles's dementia-stricken wife died. The professor is retired, withdrawn and unsure how to move on with his life. His daughter Emily, with her husband and 3 sons, lives in another city and rarely visits her father. Charles automatically every day repeats all the same activities that he used to do with his wife. For example, he walks in the park and looks at dogs. He can't get a pet because of his allergies. The daughter would be happy if her father had a hobby. But then a miracle happens. Charles sees a strange ad in the newspaper. The investigation requires an assistant, a man 75 to 85 years old, who knows how to handle a telephone. The former professor fits all the parameters. Charles is hired by private detective Julie. A rich client reports that in a private nursing home his mother's family heirloom, a ruby necklace, is missing. Now Charles has to settle in the boarding house under the guise of a new tenant and for a month to figure out the thief. Thanks to this, the man enthusiastically begins to play spy and rediscovers a taste for life. 8th place, Lockerbie, In Search of the Truth. Another series based on real events, where the characters have real prototypes. Dr. Jimsweir is a loving husband and a caring father. The life of this happy family on December 21, 1988 will change when Pan American Flight 103 explodes over the Shetland town of Lockerbie 38 minutes after takeoff. 259 people die on board and 11 on the ground. Unfortunately, one of the passengers turns out to be the protagonist's daughter, which later becomes the starting point for his years-long fight for truth and justice. Jim will devote himself to collecting materials related to the disaster. He will try to understand the cause of the large-scale tragedy and will look for the guilty party. This will become his life's work and jeopardize his marriage and relationship with his children. The investigation is moving slowly, as if it is being deliberately slowed down. The government, police, and services do not give concrete answers, but our hero is unstoppable. The series turned out to be emotional. Using the example of one family, the authors showed how fragile human destinies are before the evil of terrorism and how the lives of the relatives of the victims change. 7th place, Senna. The series is filmed in the format of a documentary drama about the life and sporting achievements of the legendary motor racer from Brazil, Ayrton Senna. The plot will tell about his performances in youth races, his debut in Formula One and Reign Monaco Grand Prix in 1984. In general, all the key moments of this big story will be shown, including his family life, as well as the anxieties felt by people watching their loved one risk everything every Sunday to win. It is not without stories about personal lives, which are overdramatized in places. People who are far away from the subject of motorsport, the series may seem too pathos. But for those who know the Brazilian, these 6 episodes are a great opportunity to return at least for a few hours to the world where there is still Senna. 6th place, Say Nothing. The story centers on Dollar's Price, who tells her story to a journalist on the condition that it be published after her death. This conversation becomes the key to memories of a turbulent youth full of protests and armed struggle. The characters delve into memories of life growing up in a family of IRA members. Dollars and her younger sister Mar, disillusioned with pacifist methods, embark on the warpath. The series begins with a kidnapping. A group of men break into Jean McConville's apartment and take the woman away. The crime was committed by IRA fighters and became one of the most notorious of those years. Using the example of McConville and her family, the writers show how ideological confrontation affected the lives of civilians. Years later, Jean's children will not rest and will demand justice. The tragedy of a large family is intertwined with the central storyline of the biographies of the revolutionary sisters, who from diapers assimilated the ideas of Republican organizations. The story of the Price sisters came out slightly drawn out, and its connection to the fate of Jean McConville is not immediately obvious. Because of this, the first episodes of the series are not as exciting as I would have liked. Overall, it's not a bad dramatic story that sheds light on the underground world of the IRA. 5th place, Dexter, Original Sin. The events unfold 15 years before the original series. In this story we learn about Dexter's youth, his formation as the most elaborate serial killer and psychopath who kills exclusively bad guys. Dexter goes to medical school, lives with his adoptive father Harry, who works as a detective, and his sister Deborah. But while all young men his age dream of a happy future, Dexter, on the contrary, dreams of taking someone's life. This obsession keeps him on his toes. Harry knows about his son's inclinations, but does not try to suppress them. On the contrary, he teaches Dexter to control his desires and impulses, at the same time warning him not to get caught when he starts his work. The main plot line is Dexter's story about how he became this way, what drives him, how he stifles his urges, and why he doesn't kill everyone. 4th place, 100 Years of Solitude. This series covers 7 generations of the Bondya family, and its plot cannot be described in 2 words. In the first episode, the main characters are Hayes and Ursula, cousins in love with each other. Confronting some cruel predictions and fears of their ancestors, they decide to leave their hometown and start a new life to find peace away from the ghosts of the past. Leaving their hometown, they do not go alone, but set off with friends in search of a better future. After 2 years of wandering, they find their home on the banks of a river where they create a settlement called Macondo. Each episode evolves with changes to the place. It thrives, but not without problems, because as with any good story, everything can't be perfect. And as is often the case, the Bondya family will encounter magical problems that seemingly can't be real. Third place, miniseries in the Western genre. This miniseries immerses viewers in the violent and grim story of the formation of the American West, set in 1857 Utah. The plot centers on Sarah, a woman traveling west with her son Devin, facing many hardships and tragedies while trying to survive and not succumb to the violence and chaos around her. Her story is intertwined with the fates of other characters, such as the Mormons Jacob and his young wife Abisha, as well as the Indians struggling to preserve their culture. The series perfectly captures the atmosphere of a pristine America where, amidst religious, cultural and social conflicts, no one can feel safe. Despite its multi-layered nature, the series utilizes traditional tropes of the genre at some points, and the typical Netflix drag may put off more impatient viewers. However, thanks to strong acting, visuals, and an honest approach to difficult topics, this is one of the best shows of the year. Second place, The Landowner. This series is set in the state of Texas, where Tommy works as a mediator between an oil company and landowners. He solves all controversial situations, including clashes with gangsters and cartels. Despite his age and lack of outward attractiveness, Tommy is a charismatic individual who handles life with confidence and grace. He has a smart daughter, good money, and everything seems to be stable. His son Cooper, who works on an oil crew, strives to achieve success on his own. However, as happens in life, happiness does not last forever. After the tragic deaths of Mexican workers on the rig, Tommy has to use all his tricks, from diplomacy to blackmail, to keep order and save his family. Although the plot develops slowly, it is still addictive, especially when watching Tommy solve difficulties with cunning and cleverness. The series is interesting because it shows the lives of both ordinary workers and their bosses. It's all a bit exaggerated, but overall it's worth watching. First place, The Squid Game. Season 2. I decided to tell you about the continuation of the sensational series, since I was hooked by this story. If you have not seen the first season, I advise you to look before watching my review. The basis of the plot is the revolutionary son Ki-hoon. As we already know, he came out the winner in the previous game, earned 45 billion won, but he didn't become happier. The protagonist's mother died, and the terrible trials and deaths of his playmates come back to him in his dreams. Ki-hoon expects once and for all to stop the bloody game, which amuses the guests. The man bought his own hotel, acquired a bunch of weapons and turned to his former creditor, Mr. Kim, for help. Every day, the bandit and his 6 roam Seoul stations in hopes of finding the recruiter. At the same time, policeman Hwang Juno, who has learned that his brother, who disappeared years ago, is the game show host, is trying to find the island. Cruising the sea near Seoul yields no results. At one point, Hwang and Sun collide and realize they want the same thing, the end of the game, to get to the host and his assistants. In Seoul, Sun fails to achieve this and has to participate in the bloodthirsty games again, hoping to educate the distressed people. At the same time, Hwang, along with a team of bandits and ex-military men, tries to find the ill-fated island and get Sun out in time. The protagonist has good intentions and says the right things, but do people need saving? I really liked this moment when the protagonist becomes disillusioned with people. In addition, he makes decisions very similar to organizational decisions. Without realizing it, our revolutionary decides that he can control the fates of other people. I hope that each of you found something new for yourself in this issue. And if it is not so, then write in the comments what series you would add to this selection. Well, thank you for watching. Also do not forget to put a like under this video and subscribe to my channel to not miss new releases.